The mysterious forest. Once upon a time, in a distant land, lived two brothers. One was poor, and the other was rich. The poor brother married a beautiful woman named Nora, but their life was extremely difficult. The wife of the rich brother, named Layla, was harsh and exploited the poor brother and his wife for hard labor without any reasonable compensation. Due to her jealousy of Nora's beauty, Layla would give her only the leftover wheat grains that fell from the sieve as payment. Karim, the poor brother, and his wife Nora endured this difficult situation for the sake of their children, praying every evening for divine provision and relief from their suffering. One day, Karim said to his wife Nora, "I can no longer endure this life. I will not spend another day here." He packed his belongings and set off into the unknown. He walked until he entered a large forest full of trees and plants. He wandered there until nightfall, and the darkness of the night filled the place. The forest was eerie, and Karim regretted leaving his wife and children without money or food. He began to weep over his unfortunate fate. Suddenly, he saw a girl cloaked in black swiftly passing by. He called out to her, but she disappeared, so he ran after her, wondering what she was doing in this place. Eventually, he reached a large, dark castle and heard the hooting of owls. Frightened, he contemplated fleeing, but then mustered his courage and thought to himself, "I have nothing to lose. I am poor, and if I die, perhaps Nora will marry another man who can provide for her and our children." He lit a stick of wood and proceeded towards the castle, pushing the door open wide. He saw a vast room filled with treasures, and at the far end of the room, a lit fireplace with a pot boiling on it. Suddenly, he heard a voice saying, "It seems you're so hungry that you don't care about the precious artifacts and golden paintings around you." Karim turned around, trembling, and saw the girl from the forest smiling at him with her fangs showing. She said, "Don't be afraid. My name is Sally. I'm not like my mother. Come, let's eat, and tell me your story." Karim sat down to eat and began sharing his tale. He told her about his wealthy brother and his cruel wife, Layla, and about his own life of poverty with his kind-hearted wife, Nora. He spoke about how they worked for his brother, who mocked him for choosing love over money, and how he often humiliated them. Sally, moved by his story, wiped her tears and said, "When you leave this room, you'll find a long corridor with 7 rooms. When you reach the 7th room, take as much silver as you can carry and leave. Do not open the other rooms. What is inside them is not your concern. If you leave here, do not return, as I cannot guarantee your safety from my mother. Promise me that." Karim promised, "Your secret is safe with me." Karim entered the corridor and saw 7 beautifully decorated doors. He remembered Sally's instructions and walked towards the 7th door. He opened it and stood in amazement at the piles of silver. He took a bag and filled it a quarter full, then slung it over his shoulder and left. When Sally saw him, she said, "Because you were not greedy, you will be rewarded with what you carried. It is rightfully yours." Had you filled the bag completely, you would not have been able to leave the castle, and my mother would have found and killed you. Karim replied, "I have lived my whole life as a poor man. My dream wasn't wealth, but simply to have enough food for myself, my wife, and my children." Sally said, "If you manage what you took wisely, you will never know poverty again. Now, go in peace. I will guide you through the dark forest." After half an hour, Sally stopped and said, "Keep going in this direction, and you will reach the first trees of the forest. I must hurry back to the castle before my mother returns from hunting." Karim sat down to rest for a while, unable to believe his fortune, and then continued his journey. When morning came, he went to the market and bought a donkey, 10 goats, and food. He rode the donkey and returned to his home. From a distance, he saw his children gathering roots and herbs. When they saw him, they dropped what they were holding and ran to him, shouting, "We are hungry, Father." With tears in his eyes, Karim said, "You will eat and be full." He opened the door and called out to Nora, "Come, the roast chicken is still hot. There is also bread, olives, and peppers." When Nora heard his voice, she began ululating joyfully, and the whole family sat down to eat. The children told their mother that their father had returned with a herd of goats grazing near the house. Nora looked at her husband with curiosity, and he said, "Let's make some tea, and I'll tell you everything." As she stood at the window, looking out at the goats and the donkey, Nora remarked, "What an incredible story. But tell me, what do you plan to do with this herd?" Karim replied, "We will take the milk and make cheese and butter, which I will sell in the market every morning. As for the remaining silver, we will use it to repair this dilapidated house and furnish it with the best furniture." Nora responded, "Isn't that too much for us?" Karim replied, "God provides for whom he wills without limit. You will no longer work for Layla, she is no better than you." Their business thrived, and their herd grew to include sheep, cows, and more goats. They bought the neighboring land and planted it with wheat and barley. Their life improved, and they transformed their house into a castle. One day, Layla said to her husband, "Sam, your brother no longer visits us, neither does his wife. Do you think they're all right?" Sam replied, "Why should I care? Father always favored him over me, but in the end, I succeeded, and he remained impoverished." Layla, knowing her husband's character, decided to visit Nora and see for herself. She took 2 loaves of bread and some vegetables and went to Nora's house. When she saw the castle and the estate, she thought she must have mistaken the address. She asked a passerby about Nora's house, and he pointed to the castle, whispering, "They say her husband found a treasure, but who knows?" Layla hurried back to Sam and told him what she had seen and heard. Sam was astonished and exclaimed, "This cannot be. I must find out the secret of his wealth." He then went to Karim's house, bearing gifts, and invited him to a grand feast at his home. Karim, thinking his brother had finally changed his ways, joyfully accepted the invitation and went with his wife and children. They ate and drank, and after the meal, Sam took the
children aside, promising to show them something amusing. When he returned alone, Karim asked, "Where did they go?" Sam replied, "If you want to see them again, tell me the location of the treasure." Karim pretended not to understand, but Sam grew angry and said, "Don't try to deceive me." Then Layla shouted, "I will tell you everything." After she recounted the story, Sam opened a dark passage and released the children. The next morning, Sam prepared himself, putting 2 large baskets on his donkey, intending to fill them with silver. He mounted the donkey and set off for the forest. Sam approached the eerie castle, feeling fear, but he told himself, "Karim is not braver than me." He pushed the door open and entered, seeing Sally standing before him. She asked what he was doing there and who had permitted him to enter. Sam began to cry, saying he was a poor man looking for work, and his steps had led him to this place. Sally, moved by his appearance, said, "There are 7 rooms in the corridor. Open the 7th room and take as much silver as you can carry. Do not open the other rooms." Sam hurried to the 7th room and found piles of pure silver. He filled a bag to the brim and began dragging it. Suddenly, he stopped and said, "Before I leave, I will see what is in the other rooms." He opened the neighboring room and saw a large heap of gold coins, utensils, and statues. He entered the bag of silver and filled it with gold. He then decided to open the other doors. Each room contained something more valuable. One had rubies, another had emeralds, and the next had diamonds. Each time, he entered the bag and refilled it with more precious items. In his greed, he did not notice the time passing quickly and that it was nearing midnight. Finally, he reached the last door, beautifully adorned. He thought to himself, what is behind this door must be the most valuable of all. He opened the door and saw a large jar. When he put his hand inside, he found it filled with wheat. He decided it was time to leave, but he heard the voice of the Gal saying, "A human in my castle, and woe to him." He abandoned everything and fled, cursing his luck. All that effort for a handful of wheat. The Gal chased after him, found the donkey, killed it, and returned to the castle. Sam wandered through the wilderness until his feet were swollen. When he finally reached his home, he was in a pitiable state and could barely stand. Layla hired a strong and healthy Labor to work on their land. She spent her days close to the Labor, eating with him while Sam, weakened and unable to work, searched the empty jars for food. In the evening, Layla would return well-fed and go straight to bed. Sam felt sorrow for the way she treated him while he was ill and began to cry over his unfortunate fate and his greed. If he had taken the diamonds and not opened the last room, he would now be the richest man in the kingdom. The Gal was right. Wheat is more valuable than anything else. What good is money if you can't find food to eat? He only understood this when he became hungry. The next morning, Sam mustered his strength and went to Kareem's house. Nora opened the door and, seeing his condition, invited him in and gave him food. She asked him, "What happened to you, and where is Layla?" He sighed and replied, "I became ill after the Gal chased me in the woods, and Layla no longer wants me because I can no longer work." Nora took pity on him and said, "No problem. You can work for us, and I will pay you wages and provide you with shelter." Sam asked, "Would you really do that for me after all the suffering I caused you?" Nora replied, "It's okay. We are neighbors, aren't we?" When Kareem returned from the market and heard what had happened to his brother, he thanked God and said, "My brother has always been greedy and never showed me any mercy, but he has now received his just reward." One evening, as Kareem's business continued to flourish and their estate expanded, he decided to visit Sally again. He wanted to thank her for the opportunity she had given him and to see if there was any way he could repay her. Entering the forest, Kareem found his way back to the castle. Sally was waiting for him by the castle gates. He expressed his gratitude and asked if there was anything he could do to help her. Sally smiled and said, "You have already done much, Kareem. Seeing your happiness and the prosperity of your family is my greatest reward. Continue to uphold your virtues and always be a source of support for those in need." Returning to his village, Kareem continued to help others and became a symbol of generosity and kindness in his community. He lived a life full of love and happiness with Nora and their children, continuing to do good for everyone around them. Their story spread throughout the village, teaching everyone that love, faith, and contentment are the true keys to happiness. Years passed, and Kareem's family grew. They built schools and hospitals, improving the lives of the villagers. Their legacy of love and generosity lived on, inspiring future generations. Kareem and Nora's children learned the values of compassion, resilience, and the importance of standing up for what is right. They carried these values forward, ensuring that their parents' lessons and kindness continued to benefit the community. One night, as Kareem sat with his family by the fireplace, he reflected on the journey they had taken together. He realized that true wealth was not in the silver, gold, or jewels, but in the love and support they shared as a family. He hugged Nora and their children tightly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and fulfillment. Thus, the tale of Kareem and Nora, once filled with struggle and uncertainty, became a story of love, hope, and enduring strength. Their journey was a testament to the power of love to heal and transform lives, creating a future filled with joy and peace. And so my story ends. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to receive all that is new. Have a nice day.